G'day, I'm Mark from Self-Sufficient Me, and we're down here at my prickly patch. I call it my prickly patch because I've got some dragon fruit plants plus some pineapples that are both rather prickly, so I've stuck them together. I used to have raspberries in this patch as well, but the canes just didn't work because they just seemed to go everywhere, so I pulled the raspberries out and just left it with the pineapples and a couple of dragon fruit vines. The big mistake that I made was not making sure that I attach the vines or let them grow up a really secure post. What I did was use some old 4x2 I had in the shed, and I thought, that'll do. I had that into the ground, and of course in a few years they rotted out of the ground, and you can see behind me in the last storm we had, and it's starting to flower and get heavier again, and as the dragon fruit plant is growing, the vine has just pushed the piece of wood over, and even though I've shored them up with a star picket on each, I've got two growing there. One of them fell and the other one is just going to go soon. So what I'm going to do is fix it up. And I'm going to use a mesh panel instead of cementing in another large post, which I probably should have done in the beginning, and let it grow up the post and then spider out. I think I'll espalier it or try to wrap it around a couple of these panels. I'll use one panel for each of the dragon fruit. You can have a couple of different dragon fruit vines growing up the one post or on the one small panel like this. They will intertwine together and work rather well. But in this case, for now, I'm just going to shore both of them up with these nice big thick galvanized panels. It's important when you're using a panel like this for a vine like this is to make sure that the holes are large enough. You don't want the small mesh, otherwise the dragon fruit vine, the small limbs of it, when it's starting to make new limbs, will get through, and then it'll try to grow out and you'll sort of strangle the plant. This here will fit a mature dragon fruit vine stem through it. So it'll not only be easier to hold the fruit and be a better structure for it, but it'll also be easier for the plant to grow through and also harvest the fruit once the fruit ripens. Before I do all that though, I need to get into my patch here and get rid of some of those weeds. So I'm going to do that first, and then I'm going to start attaching this mesh to some star pickets. That'll be a nice easy enough fix, and then pick that one plant that's fallen up over and fix all that up. See how we go. Let's get into it. Yes, I probably should have kept my weeding up to date, but sometimes gardens get away from you, and this isn't one of the most best patches to be in. There's lots of things that can prick you here and stab you, so I guess my weeding was a little bit overdue. Right, now that I've finally finished weeding the prickly patch and paid for it physically, I might add, what I'll do now, I actually found a couple of pineapple pups. I'll plant them later on, 3 of them in fact. I've got some recycled star pickets. I'll put them into the other star picket I got there, whack the mesh up, tie the dragon fruit vines to the mesh nice and securely. Then I'll mulch all over that garden there and throw in some extra fertilizer, because believe it or not, dragon fruit, being a cactus, is very hardy, but it does like a little bit of food, especially a nice good nitrogen food like a chicken pellet, organic chicken pellet feed or fertilizer or manure, and then that should be job done. So I'll keep going. I did dig out a bit of a trench just to make sure that it was fairly level, and I just did it pretty roughly really. Had this recycled star picket, whacked that into the ground, then just tied it off with some zip ties. I really like zip ties. You could use wire or anything like that. And this was a pretty ginger operation because the thing is really thorny,
and quite heavy. That's why I always say it should be secured. And you know, I planted these 5 or 6 years ago, so I didn't know a lot about dragon fruit at the time, but I certainly know a fair bit about them now, and I don't want to ever go through this again. Luckily it worked out pretty well for me. Then it's just a matter of positioning on that mesh there.
Yeah, that's not going to work too well. The weight of that dragon fruit there, that vine is going to press down on the top of that mesh and it's going to eat in. That's going to cause it to probably cut in too much and then die and drop off. So I'm going to protect that with a little bit of irrigation hose.
So I'll measure the irrigation pipe roughly, cut it off with a box cutter, and then I'll just take it down onto the ground and strip it down the middle. So see where it bows? I'm putting it up now, but the reason why I can press it on to the top of that mesh is because I've cut a line all the way down the center of it from one end to the other. But you need to cut it on the inside of the curve, and you've got to make sure that cuts straight, otherwise that irrigation piping is going to twist. But anyway, you just simply then push it on, and then I just zip tie it on. I'm getting rid of that old bit of wood. And then it's a matter of positioning the plant on it. Of course, if you're just doing a trellis and you haven't got the plant growing up there yet, you just put the trellis up. You just make sure that the piping is there ready to go, so when the plant does grow from the bottom and reach the top, or 1 or 2 plants you might plant on this type of panel, then it's going to be able to drape over the top. And that's quite important, because the draping over is what gives it small fractures, and then it produces the extra branching. And when you're tying it off to the mesh, tie it off where you can when the stem is quite hard, in that example there. But you could tie it off on the fleshy parts and it might wear through. Don't be too overly concerned with that, but if you can, try to tie it on the harder parts of the stem where it has sort of joined between each of the segments. And that's about it done. Both of them finished.
Well, it's the next day and I'm really happy with how the job turned out. I had to finish the mulching, fertilise with a bit of chicken pellet manure, organic stuff, and also do the watering in. But now the job's done, I really am happy with how the trellising mesh works with the dragon fruit vines. You know, it's not going to rust anytime soon. It's certainly, I reckon, a lot better than those smaller posts that I had. I'd recommend, if you're going to put them on a post, which is still a good way to grow them, get a really big, thick fence post, about 2 meters high, cemented into the ground so it's really nice and sturdy, and it's going to last, you know, a couple of decades. This is going to do a really good job, make it easy to get to the fruit, nicely presented, strong against strong winds and rain and some of the bad weather we get here. Yeah, I'm really happy with how it's turned out. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to visit the website selfsufficientme.com. I've written extensively about dragon fruit plant growing. Just do a search if you can't find it. Any questions, put them below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye for now.